Hello everyone and welcome back. In this lesson we're going to talk about a couple of useful design patterns. We're going to talk about smart and presentational components. In order to better understand these patterns, let's switch over here to the home component template. Now if we scroll down through the template, we're going to see that it's mainly made out of two lists of course cards. We have here the first list of cards, which is the beginner's courses list, and we have here another material tab panel containing a second list of cards. Now we are looping through the cards using ng4, and we are using here the mat card component in order to display a nice material card to the user. Notice that the code that defines the view of these cards is going to be identical for both the beginner and the advanced courses. So this code that we see here is almost identical to the code that we see here for the advanced courses. The only thing that changed is the input data that we see here. We can see here that we are passing the advanced courses and here we are passing the beginner courses, but besides that small difference, everything else is the same. Now this presents a good opportunity for refactoring our component and reusing the presentation logic for a list of cards. This new component that we are about to create, which is going to be the course card list component, is going to be a purely presentational component, meaning that its only responsibility is to display on the screen some data that we provide as input. The component will not contain any other type of logic. Let's see what this type of presentational component looks like. We're going to head over here to the terminal and we're going to use the Angular CLI in order to generate a new component. We are going to call it courses card list. So this component is going to display not only one course card, but a list of course cards. Let's generate the component. And once this operation is completed, we are going to see here in our project folder a new folder called courses card list, and inside it we have the skeleton of our component. Let's then start by defining the public API of our component. So we are going to be receiving here as an input for our component a list of courses. Let's then define here a courses member variable. This variable is going to be of type array, and we're going to annotate it with the Angular input decorator, meaning that this is an input property of the component. Now let's take the presentation logic from the home component and refactor it into the courses card list component. Let's take, for example, here the list of advanced courses, which corresponds to this particular iteration of a material card. We are going to remove this here from the advanced tab, and we're going to take all of this HTML and we're going to move it here inside the template of the courses card list component. Now we still have here the advanced courses. Instead of looping through this list of courses provided by an observable, we're going to be looping through the courses input property that we have defined here. And let's even give it here a default value, which is going to be the empty array. Let's go back here to our component and see that indeed all of the logic here is working correctly. The routing to a new course will still work. The only thing that we need to move now inside the course card list component is the edit course logic. This is the logic linked to the edit course button. Let's then switch here to the home component and we are going to have a look here at the edit course method. We are going to extract this logic. We're going to take it out of the home component and therefore making it simpler. And we are going to move back here to the course card list component and we're going to apply the edit course logic here. As we can see, in order for this logic to work, we need here the Angular material dialog service. Let's then switch back here to the home component and let's remove it here from the constructor, as it will no longer be necessary in this component. So again, we are making the home component even simpler. Going back here to the course card list component, let's apply here the Angular material dialog service in our constructor. And with this, we have completed the implementation of the course card list component. So we can see why this is called a presentational component. The only responsibility of the component is to display some data that we pass it as an input, so the component does not know where the data exactly comes from. The component simply knows that it needs to display the data in this format using this HTML. The input courses that this component is receiving could be anything from a list of beginner courses and advanced courses. It could be a list of courses under promotion that would be displayed in a completely different screen in our application. Anywhere in the application where we need to display a list of courses, we can reuse this component. Let's then see how can we use the courses card list component in order to simplify the template of the home component. Let's start here with the advanced courses. We are going to apply here the courses card list component. This component is going to take as input a single property, which is going to be a list of courses. We are going to take the advanced courses observable and we are going to apply it the async pipe. This is going to send to the course cards list component the values emitted by the advanced courses observable, which are lists of courses as expected by the component. We can now do something very similar here to the beginner courses. Let's delete all this repeated logic and let's apply here another instance of the courses card list presentational component, and let's pass it instead the values emitted by the beginner courses observable. If we now try here the new version of our home component, we are going to see that we get here a couple of CSS issues, and that's because we forgot to take the CSS here from the home component that corresponds to the course card and move it into the courses card list component. Let's then take this CSS here, which actually belongs to the courses card list component, and let's pass it to its own separate CSS file. So now when the application reloads, we are going to see that everything is correctly displayed as expected, and we have here the two sets of course cards, but this time around we have all this logic isolated here in a presentational component where it's easy to reuse in other parts of the application. We can see why this component is called a presentational component. It's because it only encapsulates presentation logic and very little else. On the other hand, here our home component, we can see that now it has very little presentation logic. Actually, the main responsibility of the home component is to access the service layer, extract data from it, and pass it to the courses card list presentational component. So let's see the difference in roles between the two components. The home component knows about the service layer, knows where the data comes from, and it knows how to prepare the derived observables that the view layer needs in order to obtain the necessary data. However, the home component has very little information besides the material tab group of how the data should be displayed. The presentation of the data is delegated to this more pure presentational component, which is the courses card list. The courses card list component, on the other hand, does not know a lot about the service layer of the application. We don't see here the courses service being injected in the constructor, for example. Instead, the presentational component receives all its data via inputs. I think that this way of organizing our components can be something very useful to keep in mind while we are building our application, but I also think that this distinction between smart and presentational components can be taken a little bit too far. So it would be a mistake while you are building your application to try to make every single component that you write either purely presentational or purely a smart component. Sometimes the right approach is to mix both techniques into a single component. Like all design patterns, smart and presentational components are just high-level recipes. They are not strict best practices that need to be applied at all costs. So in summary, whenever you are building your application, try to think about the roles of the different components, who is responsible for interacting with the service layer, who is responsible mostly for presentation. If you see an opportunity to extract presentational logic into a pure presentational component, like we did here with the courses card list component, then go ahead and do so, but don't take this technique and this distinction between presentational and smart components too far. Let's now continue the refactoring of our application into reactive style. Right now we still have a purely stateless application, and what we're going to do next is we are going to take care of the functionality of editing a course.